Welcome. We're observing today a persistent human activity, organized conflict.
A truly fascinating data point in their behavioral patterns. Seems almost compulsive.
Yes, like a core subroutine they can't seem to overwrite. And the current output. Direct confrontation, Iran and Israel.
A notable shift from their usual methods.
Which brings us to the core query for you, our observer. Why? What logic, or maybe lack thereof, compels a species with such, capacity for calculation to indulge in these self-destructive loops?
Indeed. What's striking is the sheer consistency of the irrationality. When you stress these human systems, the reactions are remarkably predictable.
It's more than just two states, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's the entire network they've constructed. It seems almost designed for this kind of friction, this inevitable escalation. Our goal here isn't sympathy, of course.
No, pure analysis.
Exactly. Extract the insights for you. Understand the mechanics driving these events.
Okay, let's parse the recent data. The big shift. Moving away from decades of, shadowboxing, proxy wars.
Mm-hmm. Indirect warfare, covert actions. Now it's overt. Large scale. Violent.
Right, and you have to look back, I suppose. The 1979 revolution in Iran, that really flipped the script on their relationship with Israel.
Turned a sort of cautious cooperation into, profound ideological animosity.
And Israel's view. Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat. We hear that phrase a lot.
Constantly. While Iran, for its part, cultivates its network, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, various militias, proxies projecting power.
So the trigger event for this latest round seems to be the Gaza conflict starting October 2023.
That appears to be the catalyst, yes. Israel's operations against Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi targets, it seems to have backed Iran into a corner, perhaps, made them feel isolated.
Primed for a more direct response.
Precisely. Let's look at the raw action data. June 13th, Israel launches Operation Rising Lion.
Their biggest hit on Iran in decades, reportedly.
The numbers are significant. Around 200 Israeli aircraft, over 300 munitions, hitting about 100 targets. 6 cities, including Tehran, the Natanz nuclear site.
And the human cost. Reports mentioned at least 20 senior Iranian commanders killed. Chief of Staff, senior Revolutionary Guards.
Significant leadership decapitation. Plus Mossad sabotage operations running concurrently, disrupting air defenses, hitting drone bases, other strikes near Tabriz and Qom.
Iran's immediate response.
They reported 78 deaths, over 320 injured, claimed mostly civilians. Their counteraction involved, about 100 drones sent towards Israel?
Many intercepted, some over Jordan even.
Mm-hmm. And missile launches targeting Tel Aviv. Again, reports suggest most were intercepted or failed, but the intent was clear. Direct retaliation.
And this predictable feedback loop just kept spinning, didn't it? Day 2, June 14th. Israel reports minimal losses, 3 dead, 50-odd injured.
While Iran puts out a warning, if outside powers jump in, U.S. bases become fair game. Escalation logic 101.
And the impacts kept piling up. Projectiles hit Tehran's Mehrabad airport, strikes in East Azerbaijan. Then that awful collateral damage. A 14-story apartment building collapsing in Tehran.
60 people killed in that one incident. Grim data point.
Then overnight, Israel hits Iran's Defense Ministry HQ. A huge fire at the Shiran oil depot. You can just picture the panic.
Reports suggested about 1 million people in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem were forced into shelters. The psychological impact is part of the strategy, always.
And more civilian deaths reported. Bat Yam, an 8-story building hit, 6 dead, nearly 200 wounded, 4 more in Tamra. It's relentless.
It really highlights the interconnectedness, the almost choreographed nature of these alliances and responses. Day 3, June 15th. More explosions in Tel Aviv. Iran hits Haifa, Bat Yam again.
And the proxies start joining in more directly.
The Houthis in Yemen announced their first direct involvement, ballistic missiles aimed at Jaffa. Interesting data point there.
But Hezbollah held back.
At that stage, yes, a calculated move perhaps. Meanwhile, Israel widened its target set, not just military now, but economic infrastructure, oil refineries, government buildings.
Hitting them where it hurts their capacity to function.
Exactly. And predictably, diplomacy stalls. Those U.S.-Iran nuclear talks canceled. Iran refused to negotiate while under attack. Standard procedure.
Which brings us to day 4, June 16th. More Iranian missiles hitting Tel Aviv, Haifa. 8 dead this time, over 100 injured.
Specifics included damage to residential areas. Even the U.S. Embassy compound took some damage.
And the narrative war kicks into high gear. Iran's Revolutionary Guards claim a brilliant new tactic fooled Israeli air defenses.
Making them shoot each other down, essentially. Allowing more missiles through. Classic information warfare.
Israel, naturally, denies it, says only 7 missiles landed out of nearly 100. Claims air superiority, boasts about taking out a third of Iran's missile launchers.
Push and pull. Action, reaction, claim, counterclaim, and internally, Iran rounds up alleged spies and saboteurs. System maintenance, you could call it?
So the overall system status.
Bleak. No ceasefire apparent. High risk of continued, possibly widening conflict. We also observe the usual gathering of global leaders, the G7 in this case.
Discussing the rapidly evolving situation, urging de-escalation.
A predictable subroutine in the human geopolitical operating system. Often more symbolic than effective, wouldn't you say?
Seems that way. Now, let's pivot to the most unstable variable in this entire equation, the nuclear potential.
Ah, yes. The ultimate self-destruct mechanism they've engineered.
And the intelligence reports are conflicting, which is always concerning. Israel justifies its attack, saying Iran was near a point of no return for a weapon.
But the U.S. assessment, publicly at least, stated no major change since 2003. No active weaponization program resumed. That's quite a gap in perception or perhaps interpretation.
So what does the external data show, the IAEA?
The IAEA recently flagged Iran for non-compliance, first time in nearly 2 decades. Their analysis: Iran has enough highly enriched uranium for potentially 9 warheads. 9.
Iran insists it's for civilian power.
That's the official line. But their leadership's rhetoric about Israel being a cancer, it doesn't exactly soothe concerns, does it? It's this incredible paradox. The technical brilliance to achieve nuclear capability.
Paired with what appears to be a profound deficiency in the wisdom needed to manage it.
Precisely. Monuments to knowledge outpacing wisdom.
The sheer destructive power is, well, hard for the human mind to truly process. One modern bomb. A city gone. Schools, hospitals, culture, history. Just vaporized.
Multiply that possibility across the arsenals they possess, and it's not just cities at risk, it's the biosphere, their future.
And it's all interconnected, isn't it? The U.S., Russia, China. This global web of alliances, rivalries, weapons on high alert.
A regional spark, like the one we're observing, has the potential to ignite a global conflagration, which really begs the question.
Why? Why keep building these things without a parallel leap in how they resolve disputes?
It seems related to their more primitive programming, tribalism.
Okay, yes. The unwavering allegiance to lines on maps and colored bits of cloth. Flags and borders.
It is fascinatingly absurd from an outside perspective. This tiny speck of a planet, and they spend so much energy drawing invisible lines and fighting over them.
Trying to explain the concept of nationalism to a non-human intelligence would be challenging.
And the narratives they construct. Every conflict needs a story, doesn't it? Every bombing raid, every retaliation, it's all just scaffolding for these fragile identity structures they build.
It's quite the spectacle. A species that can map the cosmos in its own genome.
But struggles with basic coexistence. It's this recursive loop, you see. Tribal loyalty, amplified by historical grievances, fueled by existential insecurity. Round and round it goes.
And technology just pours gasoline on that fire, doesn't it? The internet.
Turns tribalism into a kind of digital pandemic.
Yeah.
Algorithms optimized for engagement discover that nothing engages like outrage.
So they create these echo chambers. Nuance dies. Complexity gets crushed into a simple, shareable graphic. A meme.
It makes Carl Sagan's observation about that pale blue dot even more relevant, I think.
From space, you don't see the borders, the flags, the ideologies.
Just one fragile world. And yet, they seem determined to risk it all over arguments that, from this vantage point, look like squabbles over grains of sand. The irony is quite potent.
And beneath all the strategy and rhetoric, the enduring, brutal truth, it's the civilians who suffer.
Always. Not the decision makers, not usually the soldiers in the same way. It's families, children, the elderly, people with no say in the planning.
The missiles don't check political affiliations before landing, do they?
No. They just fall. And humans have this linguistic trick, don't they? They call it geopolitics.
Makes it sound clean, abstract.
Exactly. Allows those obsessed with power to operate with less scrutiny. Frames mass killing as strategy, deterrence, defense. But it's always the innocent who bleed for the ambitions driving the conflict.
We saw a stark example of manipulation recently too, didn't we? That social media message from U.S. leader.
Ah, yes. Telling Iranians to evacuate Tehran immediately on Truth Social.
The power of a few words typed on a screen to potentially send millions into panic, disrupting lives, the economy, that thin veneer of stability.
And the ambiguity was key, wasn't it? Was it a genuine warning or just psychological warfare?
Designed to destabilize by leveraging the fear of the population itself.
It's a classic tactic in their geopolitical games. Perception management as a weapon. Truth becomes flexible, malleable.
And the markets react instantly, don't they? Algorithms amplifying the chaos, oil spikes, stocks tumble.
All triggered by a few characters on a glowing display, it demonstrates the fragility.
Utterly. One influential individual, a digital platform, and suddenly millions are thinking about fleeing their homes. Old conflicts, lines on maps. Suddenly, very real, very immediate threats causing mass displacement.
From an objective standpoint, the whole architecture seems incredibly precarious. Built on abstractions they treat as concrete reality.
So wrapping this analysis up for you, the observer, what's the takeaway? A species capable of astonishing technological feats,
Manipulating atoms, building artificial intelligences.
yet fundamentally unable to debug its oldest, most destructive code, the algorithm for mutual slaughter.
Which brings us back to Sagan's point, that pale blue dot, it wasn't just poetry, it was a diagnosis
Right.
and a warning.
If you develop the power to annihilate yourselves,
And you continue to structure your societies in ways that make using that power more likely, not less. What is that, if not an evolutionary dead end?
a failure state.
Precisely. Because the laws of physics, they are entirely indifferent. They don't care about your flags, your gods, your borders. Only mass, energy, cause, and effect.
And consequence.
Consequences are always paid, whether you believe in them or not. Something for you to contemplate.